Okay, we're going to be doing nutritional counseling today. Let me get back up. Okay, so when you hear the word nutrition, what does that mean to you?
Healthy.
Healthy? Okay, and then do you think your diet from the last 5 days was nutritious or like healthy?
No.
No, okay. And then do you think you covered all of your food groups?
Definitely not.
Definitely not, okay, accurate. Okay. So nutrition is actually defined as the process by which people use food to obtain nutrients for like energy, growth, and just maintenance. And then it has many functions like regulating fluid balances, energy production, repairing tissues, and just keeping our immune system strong. So that's why that's just so important, is having like a full nutritious diet. Okay, so what I did was from here, your 5-day diet. So as you can see, there's stuff circled in red and blue. The red are your simple sugars, and the blue is your complex carbohydrates. And then we take it over here and put it on your cariogenic food intake form, which we'll get into that later, but it's important. You were, just from when you came in last semester with Emily, you were a low caries or like risk for cavities, which is good. And then I did see that you have seasonal allergies and you're taking vitamin C with, I honestly don't know how to pronounce that, but you take that as needed. Vitamin C is actually really great to be taken because it helps with like inflammation in your mouth as well. And I did look that up as well, and it did say it should be helping with the inflammation in your mouth as well, so that is a good thing to take. Okay. Now, some issues that can occur if you're not having like getting all your food groups or just really not eating super nutritious, it can lead to issues like a weakened immune system, making you more susceptible to like diseases or infections. And then from prolonged malnutrition, it could include like things like organ failure. It could affect your heart, your lungs. That's why it's so important to like prioritize maintaining a balanced, like rich diet and getting all your food groups. Okay. Now, from when you came in with Emily, do you remember, or I can't remember where you are with class right now, do you remember how a cavity is formed?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you remember the like, or so you know like the pH scale and all that? Have they taught you?
Maybe brushed on it. I don't know if we had like a...
Okay, so what the pH
but...
scale is you have acidic and basic. Basic is, so it's like 1 to 14. What's neutral is 7, which is ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what makes you, like when you're consuming foods and certain stuff like that, your pH will drop, and 5.5 is like the critical level where it can start like decay and like causing a cavity. That's why the pH scale is so important. Which I kind of talked about it, the decay equation. Do you remember that from the DCI? So it's basically like anytime you're eating foods and the acid on your tooth creates decay. So all those things are important, but we'll get into that more too. And then last question, do you think, what's better, like 3 larger meals or 5 small meals throughout the day?
3 larger.
3 larger, yes. Okay. So you learned this with your DCI, but so normally like our minerals in our mouth just naturally, like calcium phosphate, can help with remineralization, but when we're constantly consuming like sugars and stuff like that, our saliva can't keep up, which causes demineralization. So pretty much they'll say like 10 a.m. you have like your breakfast and your coffee. So for at least 20 minutes, you're at an acid imbalance, which is that 5 going down from neutral 7 pH to that 5.5. So no matter what, at least 20 minutes. And then it's going to take another 20 minutes to get back to neutral. So overall it's about 40-minute like thing anytime you're like eating or drinking like certain types of foods. So that's why the frequency is so important, which is what this is that we'll get into. So like, because there was a couple times on here where you have like, you know, you ate your breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then like for a snack you had like a can of Coke or something like that. That's why frequency is so important. Because say you ate lunch at like 12 and then you decided to have that Coke at like 1 p.m. your mouth was only back at a neutral for about 20 minutes. So it's like extra, now that 40 minutes is starting all over again. So it's almost 2 hours instead of just the original 40 minutes because you didn't have your Coke with your lunch rather than you had it as like a snack, stuff like that. Which that's why you were right, the 3 larger meals a day are better than smaller. Now there are things you can do to help get the pH back to like neutral a little bit faster. I don't know if you've learned about like xylitol gum yet.
We've talked about it.
Xylitol being in your gum is great because it helps like get rid of the bacteria and just bring that pH back to normal a little bit faster, or just like swishing with water in your mouth can help as well. Okay. And then that is why we went over to here. Did they teach you what cariogenic means yet?
maybe.
just means cavity causing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so again, that's why the small frequent intervals, like the 5 smaller meals a day, is not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So we took everything on here, which are the karyogenic foods, and transfer them to here so we could see your frequency of intake.
Mm-hmm.
So you had about usually 3 to 4 exposures per day, which isn't bad. On the day 5, you only had 2, so that is better than having like 5, 6 exposures a day. Ideally, around 3 is what we want. But the days that you had 4 exposures was just like you had your Coke as like a snack rather than like with your meals. So we could always like reduce that down to 3 if that gets changed as well, which is great. Okay. And then now, do you know what the different consistencies of foods might be? No, that's okay.
Maybe when you say them.
But yeah, when you read it, you probably will, yeah. Okay, so sugars in solutions is one of the first ones, just foods that aren't solid at room temperature. So things like your coffee and the Coke that you're drinking. Also like dressings and certain sauces would be in that category as well. And then we have our solid sugars, solid at room temperature, things like your bananas, your pizza. And then we have our naturally occurring sugars, just means that they have not been processed. So things like orange juice, grapes, milk, stuff like that. And then we have our retentive foods, which are just foods that can like stick in the grooves or in like in between your teeth. So things like Oreos, bread, stuff like that would be considered a retentive food, which most of your foods actually did end up being, or a decent bit were retentive, which we'll get into that too. Okay, and then non-retentive foods are just the things that aren't sticking in your mouth, like the brownies or whatnot. So like things like cheese cubes, vegetables, apple sauces would be a good thing, because when you think about it, like how I said it takes about overall 40 minutes for your pH to go back to neutral. So say you have like a tiny piece of bread stuck in between your teeth all day long. Mm-hmm. So all day long it's at that acid imbalance, which isn't good because it can, cause decay, cause a cavity to potentially form, versus like the non-retentive foods you don't need to worry about getting stuck in your teeth causing that prolonged acid imbalance. Okay, and then now we're gonna look at this. So I had you do your My Plate plan, which was just based on your height, age, and weight, and then it formulated how much of each food group you should be eating. But we'll go down here to where it says like excess sugars. So it said that you should be eating less than 55 grams a day of added sugar, less than 24 grams of saturated fat, and less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day, and then about 60 minutes every day of activity, which I do think, just because you were eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just small amounts, so you did meet that you were below all of these, which is good, but it is because they're not like full nutritious, like especially lunch isn't like a real big meal. I'd say that's like just a real small, tiny, kind of almost like a snack was yours. But even so, like we always want to look where we can limit some of the excess sugar. So like I know you had a pepperoni roll from Sheetz the one day. I do love those too, but obviously not the most nutritious. A good option would be like on a Sunday or something, you can try making like at home, like homemade pepperoni rolls, and use healthy ingredients such as like whole wheat tortillas or stuff like that. And then you also do add cream and sugar into your coffee every day, just trying to limit maybe exactly how much sugar you're putting into your coffees, just little ways to reduce how much extra sugar you're having in your plate. Okay. Now looking at this, basically, so I took, sorry, I got my papers everywhere. So I took all of this from like day 1, 2, 3, 4, and had their own little setup, but I kind of added it onto here. So do you think that you met, or I think I asked you this already and you said no, that whether or not you met the recommended My Plate amount?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay. What areas do you think, like which food group specifically do you think you were lacking in the most?
Vegetables.
Vegetables? Definitely, I'd say that. I would say dairy as well. There's actually only one day somewhere in here I just took the cheese from your burger to count under dairy. So that was really the only section, was just the one slice of cheese for the dairy with this. But looking at this, so it says they want you to eat about 2 cups of fruits a day. you met 1 out of the 5-day requirements for fruits. Vegetables, just meaning like because they want you having like 3 cups vegetables, 7 ounces. So even if you ate it, it just wasn't the technical 3 cups. So for vegetables, 0 of the days were met, but you did eat it on 2 out of the 5 days you were eating vegetables. And then like grains, they want you to eat 7 ounces. 2 out of the 5 days you actually did meet the 7-ounce requirement, but and you did eat it every single day. So just the 3 days you didn't meet the 7 ounces. Protein, 2 out of 5 of the days were met that you had 6 ounces, and you had protein 4 out of the 5 days. And it was really just the main one was dairy, 0 out of 5 days met, and only 1 out of the 5 days were ate. So definitely lacking like dairy and fruits more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, we'll get into some suggestions with that in a second. But first, I want to go over some serving sizes with you. So if you make like a fist like this, how big do you think that would be, like of a portion?
Like cup size? Like
Yeah.
how much?
Like 1 cup, half a cup,
3/4 of a cup.
3/4. So it's actually 1 cup of like rice, pasta, fruits, vegetables, or like you compare it to like the size of a baseball, or like the palm of your hand, like right here would be about half of a cup of like a medium-sized fruit, or like the size of a tennis ball.
Mm-hmm.
Or like 3 ounces, same thing, of meat or fish would be in the palm of your hand. My favorite one is 1 ounce. It's just your thumb right here of like peanut butter, hard cheese. And then 1 serving of cheese is actually like 1.5 ounces, or about like 4 like little dice stacked on top of each other would be good for like serving sizes. Just tips and tricks to remember when you're picking your portions when you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now again back to some weaknesses in the dietary habits. We already said about dairy and fruits is probably where you're lacking the most. And then you are also, if we look over at this, so the R is just retentive, S is the solid at room temperature, SS is sugar in solution. So if you look at this, there is a decent amount of food that is under the retentive category. So that's just something to be aware about, that like even if we can try limiting some of that, but even if not so, just some of those tips and tricks like chewing your xylitol gum just to help get that out of the grooves of your teeth, or like swishing your mouth with water just to make sure you're not having like that little piece of bread in the back of your molar just causing an acid imbalance all day. And then another one would just be, which you didn't do it too often, but just so you're aware of it is best to drink like your soda with your meal rather than just like in between meals, just to limit the frequency. Okay. Now for the grocery store. So tips and tricks for that is, obviously your mom probably told you this, I know my mom did, never go hungry, and always have like your list made and ready before you even enter the grocery store. And then once you get there, what you want to do is actually, it's best to shop the perimeter first, because that's where all your main food groups are, your fruits, veggies, dairy, meat, seafood. And then like all the junk is kind of like, you know, in the middle aisles, like your dressing, your chips is more in the middle. So you want to start with your perimeter of the grocery store just to ensure you're getting everything that you need to get. And then like produce, like your fruits and vegetables, when they're frozen, they are at their most ripest, which is when they contain the most nutrients. But you know, frozen is the next best thing. Canned fruits and vegetables still beneficial to your diet rather than not eating it at all. And then, okay, a suggestion for you would be meal prepping on maybe like Sundays before like the school week starts, just to allow you to have like your lunch pack, because that is obviously one of your smaller meals was lunches. So just to help get a little bit more in there. And okay, your list of favorite foods. And because I know you did have grilled chicken on a couple of the days, you had rice on a couple days, so maybe like meal prepping that for a few days throughout the week just to bring in would be a good option. Or like a salad, that way you could add, you know, like carrots, onions, stuff like that. Just fruits, you can add that all into your salad as you want, just to have something nutritious for lunch for you.